Gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to the Newbie Photographer Podcast. I'm your host, Nathan Holritz. Happy Friday to those of you that may be watching the live stream today. It's been one of those kind of crazy weeks. In fact, so crazy. There was actually one evening this week I was doing work until about 1:30 in the morning. 2 or 3 of those hours, I was actually driving around in my car testing an app that we're actually developing. We're going to be releasing hopefully around the first of the year. It was kind of a weird week, but overall, good week. Thankful. And I'm thankful for those of you that are listening in and watching the show. And we are here at the Newbie Photographer Podcast to simplify photography and photography business for new photographers. And we've launched this podcast, done about 20 episodes or so now, with a couple of different series. One is a series called I Wish I Knew. And we've had established photographers come on the show, talk about a big idea, principle that they wish they knew when they first got started in business. And then we've also done a series or begun a series called I'd Like to Know. New photographers coming on the show, they want to know more about a particular idea or a concept. We get into that. Today, we're doing another episode in the I Wish I Knew series. And I'm glad to announce or introduce, I should say, a brand new guest. Melissa Rich is here with me. Melissa, thank you so much for coming to do the show.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Well, and I was telling you this before we got started, and I have to give you props for it again here as we're getting into the episode, but you have the best energy. And you know what? We should actually use this just for like a 60-second, shall we say, what do they call it? PSA? Yeah, PSA.
Oh, let's do it.
The photography industry, when it comes to bringing energy to interactions with other individuals. Mm-hmm. I mean, certainly in our personal lives, that's a whole conversation by itself. But in our professional lives, with our businesses, clients, potential clients, other vendors that we're working with, it is so important to, I don't want to say act interested, but to actually bring an energy which is genuine interest and excitement and curiosity to a conversation, because people aren't used to that, number one. So you have an incredible opportunity to make a real big impact, even if they don't let on right away, to make an impact in that person's life, potentially gain a client as a result. But if nothing else, it's just a good thing to do as human beings to a fellow human being. Let's actually care. Let's actually give a damn about the person on the other side of this conversation and act like it, right?
Yes, absolutely. Okay. Lift each other up, be interested. You know what I mean? You got to give to get all of it.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I say this from personal experience too, because I can think back to at least a couple of individuals in my life who, just being on the other side of them, I'm like, oh my goodness, this person has no responsibility for me and my life, and yet makes me feel like $1 million just after, say, 3 minutes of conversation. And I think we should be thinking about and intentionally making an effort to make that kind of impact on other people's life, whether it's somebody at the checkout counter at Walmart or a potential client that we're having a Zoom meeting with, whatever it may be. So props to you.
Absolutely.
You're doing it.
Thanks. That's awesome. I'm glad. I'm here for it.
And I can tell, but I know we have limited time too, so we're going to jump right into this. We're here today to, again, continue on this series about a big idea or principle that you as an established business owner wish you knew when you first got started in business. We're going to come to that in a second, but will you give a little bit of background to your brand, introduce yourself to our audience?
Absolutely. So I have a little bit of a unique take. So I have been a wedding photographer for the last 15 years full time, which makes me an old fogey in my market and my industry. This is my last season shooting weddings, and I've actually started a new business called Virtually Done Systems, where I focus solely on helping wedding photographers get systems and workflows in place that will make their lives easier and will get them time back to spend, not on their business, but with their family and friends and their loved ones and that kind of thing. So I'm taking 15 years of working in the wedding industry and working with clients and knowing those expectations and putting it into helping other people get their lives back and make their lives easier and make their businesses better. So that's all that I've ever wanted in life, is to make people's lives better. So here we go.
I love that. I will, and we share a very similar mission, actually, Melissa, because in the bio, all of my social media bios, I think, it just very simply says, I build businesses that help encourage relationships and save people time. And it seems like that is kind of your mission as well, which is really cool.
Absolutely.
By the way, 15 years as a photographer, I would have guessed that you were like 30. So that's also impressive as well. Super. You've been shooting since you're 15. That's really impressive.
Thanks. I'll take it.
But honestly, I think a lot of that too, again, has to do with that energy that you bring to the conversation. And I just want everybody listening in to take that away as just a really great reminder. So yeah, again, props to you.
Thanks. That means a lot. Thank you.
And I'm going to go ahead and first of all, I love that you're a photographer, then of course transitioning into your current business because you're speaking from experience. And that makes a really big difference, especially in this conversation. But for those of you listening in or not, I've pulled up on screen virtuallydonesystems.com, just like it sounds. And I love the kind of the tagline there at the top of the page. It's time to get your life back. Pre-strategized systems for busy wedding photographers. And what is it about wedding photography that I don't know, Melissa, this is my take, but I would venture that most full-time wedding photographers, if they do set up the systems, the correct systems and efficient systems in their business, they could get away with working about 25, maybe 30 hours a week if we're really pushing it. And yet they're working 50, 60, 70, 80 hours a week, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot when it comes to the wedding photography industry, the beautiful thing about this industry is that there are so many amazingly creative people out there, but that also means that they've got all of this creative energy to use, and it doesn't go into the backside of your business, the systems and making things work that way. It goes into the front side, creating all the pretty pictures and things like that. I can say this because I am engaged to a creative person, and we had this conversation this morning.
That's awesome.
Thanks. But creative brains have a hard time when it comes to something big like building systems or workflows or that kind of thing. They just can't wrap their brain around it because they're used to putting all of their energy someplace else. And so it takes somebody who thinks a little bit differently, if you will, to come in and help them get those systems set up or to walk them through how to do it, because otherwise it's just so overwhelming. It's like trying to eat an elephant. You know what I mean? Where do you even start with that?
And we definitely don't want to eat any elephants. So
no, for sure. Bad analogy, but that's blame it on my list up.
It's good. We don't though. We don't want to eat elephants literally or figuratively.
Right.
And so we're going to actually get into that today. I know we're already giving away the topic, of course, of conversation today. Dave Moss from Facebook is chiming in. He says Melissa is rad. And I agree, Dave. She's definitely rad. And actually, we're going to she's going to impart her rad advice and wisdom and experience here to us, all of us listening in and viewing. So, Melissa, I'm going to go ahead and just kind of share, I guess, with our listeners that we are going to be talking about systems and workflows. That is kind of the concept, the big idea that you wish you knew more about when you first got started in business. Is that right?
Oh my gosh, 100%. 100%, without a doubt.
Well, and so paint a very detailed, you can include elephants if you want, paint a very detailed description of what that looked like, a pre-realization of the significance of systems. What did that look like as a photographer?
That looked like this was a part-time hustle that I was helping my fiance with, or my boyfriend at the time with, trying to keep track of all of his stuff because he was out creating. It looked like getting a new lead or a new inquiry for a wedding. I would put that bride's name into this Excel spreadsheet that lived on my desktop, put the wedding date, put her email address, send her an email saying, hey, yeah, we're available for your wedding date. We can book you for this much. And then either we heard back or we didn't. And if we did not hear back, I highlighted her red in my Excel spreadsheet. And if we did hear back, she got green, and it was an email back saying, hey, you're on our calendar. Awesome. And that was it. That was literally it. And we thought that we had it together and that we were all over it. You know what I mean? And you know, for us, it was a system to get started with. And that's the thing about systems is you have to have a place to get started. And even just keeping that Excel spreadsheet, that was our own little system that worked for us. But that was the before, if you will.
Well, so let's park there for just 1 second.
Yeah.
So first of all, systems, for everybody listening, actually, I can share my own definition of systems. I'm curious how you define that word system, Melissa.
Yeah, let's do it. So to me, a system, so oftentimes people get system confused with a CRM. A CRM is your platform. I consider a system to be any sequenced list of steps that you take to get you from one point to another to help you reach your goal. So it could be workflows, it could be emails, it could be forms that you send out, it could be anything combined that's going to take you from point A to point B to help you achieve that final goal.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, so I mean, I think when some photographers hear, maybe a lot of photographers hear that word systems, they immediately just like their eyes glaze over. They turn off the podcast. They're like, I have no interest in that. I'm a photographer. I'm passionate about the art. Maybe I want to make a little bit of money, and then I want to go sit on a beach or hang out with my kids. And the reality is, we have a business that requires some type of workflow. Like we are doing we are carrying out a workflow on a day-to-day basis. It is A, what we should be spending time on or not. B, it is being done efficiently or not, right? And systems, really one of the major benefits of systems, because as you pointed out, they are steps that we repeat over and over again in order to get a particular task done or a set of tasks done. We need to, or if we want to have some kind of life as a business owner, we need to implement those systems in order to refine and make that workflow more efficient, and then be able to go enjoy all the things that we want to do, including, by the way, even more photography if we want to, spending time with the important people in our life if we want to do that, whatever it is. But it takes just a little bit of effort and energy to put those systems in place up front. And I think that's the topic's not sexy, but then two, photographers are like, oh, I don't want to have to do that work to get started. Can you relate to that feeling, at least back then?
100%, because all you want to be doing is taking pictures. You know what I mean? That's why you started your photography business, was to take pictures. You did not start your photography business to try to learn how to use this software that seems super complicated to send out emails that could be automatic. That's not what you want to be doing. Like, you want to be with your clients, getting likes on Instagram, getting all the exposure, creating these beautiful, awesome portraits all over the place, and not working. You want to be working in your business and not on your business. And you have to take that step back to work on your business, and systems are such an integral part of that if you want to grow at all as a business owner.
Yeah, it's easy to get sucked into the so-called busy work. And busy work is an interesting thing because there are tasks that have to be done. But again, the question is, are we doing them as efficiently as possible? If we have to actually do them, or have we looked for opportunities to delegate them? But it's so easy just to get sucked in. And so we're just blinders on. We're doing the thing over and over and over again. And then what ends up happening is we get behind, we get stressed out, we're overwhelmed. And we might be even generating a decent income as a photographer, but we're getting burnt out in the process. So the goal of systems is to make the day-to-day more efficient. As a result, stress, at least less stressful, if not stress less. And it takes just a little bit of effort and energy to put the systems up in place up front, and then we benefit from it massively.
Definitely, 100%.
Well, so let's actually get into the practical application here with the time that we've got left. I know that you said you have kind of 5 specific ways you've applied this to your business with a couple bonuses. I'm going to go ahead and we'll tease that. So everybody listening in and watching, you better stay to the end. Let's just go ahead and dive right into those, Melissa.
Yeah. Okay. So the first thing when it comes to systems and implementing them into our business, having worked with a creative, Mr. Kyle, I knew that we could not look at our client lifecycle, is what I'm going to call it, from the time a client inquiries until
Did
you
just
hand
call
off
him
their
Mr.
photos.
Kyle?
I did.
Were you a teacher in a past life? That sounds like something.
My mom and my sister are, and that's my dad's nickname for him. And so sometimes it pops out.
Mr. Kyle. Okay. Well, everybody listening and watching, you can infer what you want to from that. We'll continue on. Please keep going, Melissa.
So I knew that when it came to making systems that were going to work for both of us, the creative Kyle and myself, whose brain works a little differently, I knew that we couldn't look at it as one big lump sum system that we had to create. So what I did was I took our client life cycle, so every piece from the very first inquiry to booking to this chick didn't respond to me to pre-engagement session, and I broke that life cycle down into phases or stages of a client life cycle that they were going to work through with us. So that way, in my CRM, and as we were building out these workflows and systems that we needed, it was easier to tackle smaller bites and pieces one at a time instead of the whole dang thing. Okay.
So then this first step then in this process of implementing more efficient systems is to break them apart, break everything you're doing into smaller pieces. Is that right?
Yes. Okay. Yeah, that's absolutely true. And the way that I like to do this is I call it the Post-it method, if you will. So my favorite way to do this is to grab a stack of Post-its and to write all of the interactions or steps that I take with each and every client down on its own Post-it. And then I take my stack of Post-its and I stick it down the wall or I stick it in the window so that it's lined up completely from start to finish for that phase, if you will, so that I can see it, so I can visually see it. And I've learned that this helps visual learners as well too. If they can actually see the workflow steps laid out, that helps them immensely. Then you know what you're missing, where you need to add to. Well, this doesn't go this doesn't feel right here. Let's switch it around a little bit.
Okay.
So I do that, and then I add to those Post-its, I add more Post-its to underneath it to reflect the steps that I need to build for that, or the collateral that I need to build. So under an initial inquiry step, if you will, I know I need an email template. I know I need a scheduler link potentially. I know I need a pricing guide, some galleries to send them to. That way, as I'm building this step out, I can have it written down and know exactly what I need to do for this one little step before getting overwhelmed and just trying to build it from scratch in my CRM or your project management tool.
Okay.
So that's the first thing I did.
And that's the first thing. And what would you say, like, how would you sum up the benefit of doing that? Like, as opposed to what photographers are doing, which is just kind of like haphazardly swimming through the chaotic mess of all the things that they have to keep up with. We're taking everything, essentially listing out everything that they do. And I love this idea of using sticky notes for the visual component, the more tangible component of being able to see it and organize it and get rid of stuff that doesn't belong and so forth. But what would you say the ultimate benefit of doing this is?
I think the benefit is that you see what you've got and you know what you're missing. You know what I mean? Because so oftentimes if you jump right into our CRM or project management tool to start building workflows and systems out, you can get ahead of yourself and then not realize that you're missing a step until you're halfway down that path. And then it's like, well, shoot, now I've got to go back and redo this or rebuild this or that kind of thing. So it gives you a good overall picture so you don't get lost or ahead of yourself. Plus, for visual learners, it's that visual look of, oh, this is actually how this is going to work and not just typed out in a spreadsheet or that kind of thing.
Huh. Okay. So, and they're going to do this. I mean, you're talking about CRM and clients, like the steps that a photographer might go through for the client workflow. But would you suggest a photographer does this with literally everything in their day-to-day workflow?
100%.
Okay.
And we have done this with everything.
Okay.
So much so that we had Post-its in our window and we're playing tic-tac-toe with the neighbors at one point. But this helps. It was hilarious. But this helps with everything from your backup system. You know, what you do when a shoot is done. What are the steps you need to take, everything like that. This helps with figuring out what needs to go in your bag. You know what I mean? So that if you're building a bag list of what needs to go in your bag before every session so you don't forget anything, which we've all done, you know what you're missing as far as that goes. These visual cues just really, really help solidify things, especially for creative souls and creative learners.
Okay. That's good. All right. So we're taking step one, and we've spent a lot of time on step one, so we're going to have to kind of move a little quickly.
Step one and step two. That's fine.
No, that's good. So step one is to break everything down into smaller pieces and parts. One, for the sake of awareness. I guess two, for the sake of really awareness, one of what we actually do, because sometimes again it's easy just to kind of blindly go through the mess, right? So become aware of what we do, find out what's missing, and potentially organize what it is that we're doing so that we're running more efficiently as a result. All right, so that's step one.
Absolutely.
Take us to step two.
Yes. Step two is the visual cues. So that's going to be using the Post-its. So we already kind of covered that. So that kind of super easy tags along to step number one. Step number three is to work with what you've got when it comes to your systems. I remember attending photography conferences and workshops and hearing all about these client experience systems that you have to have and how these workflows are going to save you so much time. And the speakers always built these things up to be this big, huge, gigantic, important piece of your business, and they are. But what they don't include is that sometimes you have to start with what you've got and let your systems grow from there. Like I said, when we started building systems, it was an email, maybe two. And then over the years, our system has grown into be this completely beautiful automated thing, but with like 50 plus canned emails and schedulers and forms and links to this and links to that. And it would never have gotten there once we first started. So a big way to tackle this is to just start simple. If you've only got one or two emails that you're working with, start with that. You can always add to and build onto your system or your workflow as you grow. I would recommend that you build on as you grow, because you don't know what you don't know when you first get started. You know what I mean? So start simple and then add on. Your clients are never going to know the difference. They're just going to think you're trying to serve them better.
Well, and you're right. It's so easy for all of us to kind of overcomplicate things. We have the luxury of a lot of time on our hands, and we sit and we analyze and we think through this, and then we end up having so many moving parts in our business, and especially as sole proprietors, like we only have so much bandwidth, right? So the more moving parts that we have to keep up with, the more potentially inefficient that we're running, but then also the more stressful it can potentially be as
Yeah.
well. And that might even carry over to the client experience. So I love the
Yes.
idea of simplicity.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're starting with breaking everything into smaller steps or pieces, and then moving into that visual cue with the sticky notes for the sake of organization. Number 3 is to work with the tools that you have already, work with what you've got. What's number 4?
Number 4 is to use simple systems. So this kind of goes back to the idea of the big overwhelming system that everybody talks about. It does not have to be that hard. A system can be a printed to-do list that you have on your desk or in your gear closet for every time you pack your bag. It can be a checklist in notes of the certain steps that you walk through with each of your closet. Keep it simple when you first get started. Don't think that it has to have all the things all at once, because it does not have to. You can build to get that to that point. But like, use what works for you. Checklists are a great system to use when you're first getting started because it's simple, it's easy, everybody knows how to use it, and that keeps you on task and makes sure you're knowing what you're doing with all your clients, but it's also not going to overwhelm you or be super complicated.
I like that. I'm a total nerd, but I've spent, who knows, hundreds of hours probably at this point studying task management, project management systems over the years. Yeah. And the funny, and you can go buy a super complicated, fancy task management or project management software by subscription. Yeah. And the irony is now I'm just using the reminders app on my iPhone. And it is very, very simple, but it has the basic components necessary for me to create a few lists, dedicated lists, and then put individual tasks into that, add reminders if I need to. But it really doesn't have to be overly complicated.
No. Oh my gosh.
In fact, it's easy to get distracted with our process versus just getting the thing done in the end. Simplicity, I love that you're highlighting this notion of simplicity, especially for new photographers. All right, take us to number 5.
So number 5 kind of rolls along with simplicity, but this is keeping your systems realistic for you. So you can build out the perfect client workflow and system and everything like that, and it might have some manual steps in there like gifting and sending this email and that kind of thing. But if those aren't realistic things that you're going to do, then don't add them to your system. I know that when we first started building systems and when I first started building our dream client experience system out, it had so many manual steps in there that I thought we're going to work so well for our business and impress our clients and everything like that. But when it came down to it, I didn't have the time to get them done and our clients didn't notice anyway. So you have to keep your systems realistic when you're building them and actually pay attention to like what works for you and what does not work for you. Just because so-and-so down the street does it doesn't mean that you have to do it.
Yeah, and you know that phrase "work for you" is it is kind of a broad phrase that is used in a lot of different scenarios. You know, what works for you, do what works for you. But I think if nothing else, where we can really talk about specific application here is what is sustainable, as in what can you actually do consistently over and over and over and over again. It's like the person that says I'm going to go to the gym and work out 3 hours a day, and they can barely get up and go once a week as it is right now, and now they're going to suddenly set this massive goal in front of them that everyone knows they're not going to actually follow through on, right? But the reality is if you go 20 minutes a day, 5-6 days a week, and you do that consistently over say 6 months, for example, it will make a massive impact on your life. So it's taking the most important small steps and implementing those consistently that makes the biggest impact. Yeah. Stop trying to be fancy, everybody.
Absolutely. Yeah. Just do you. You have to do you, boo. Do what works for you. Absolutely.
All right. You said 2 bonus tips and everybody's hanging on for this. So what are those?
Here we go. So bonus tip number 1 is that you have to find a platform that works for you when you're building your systems. Just because the hot platform is whatever, I'm not going to name names here because I don't want to play favorites, but just because the hot new platform seems to work for everybody else, if you get into that thing and it's not working for you and it's not user intuitive, don't try to force it on yourself. Find another platform that does work for you. For instance, if you're more of a visual person, let's find a platform for you that caters to that. You know what I mean? We finally found our dream platforms. I love using Dubsado plus ClickUp for for all of our businesses because one has the visual aspect and all of the project management to-dos that we need, and the other automates beautifully. But it's taken me, 4 or 5 CRMs to find the one that works right for me. And I'm okay with that because this one finally does. So find the platform that works for you and stick to it. Don't shop around a whole bunch.
And ClickUp, it looks like I actually had it bookmarked, but I'm not super familiar with it. How do you use ClickUp for yourself?
Oh my gosh. How do I not use ClickUp?
What's the short version?
This is the nerd alert part. Okay.
Okay.
So I use ClickUp to manage both our photography business, where I have a template that I apply to every wedding that we get that lists out every single manual step that we do for all of our clients, from sending that first gift to finding someone to watch the corgis on a wedding day, to picking up our dry cleaning, to mailing the wedding album, step by step by step. It's a highly customizable tool that you can use to build and cater to exactly your business. So I use it for that, for our photography business. For my virtually done business, I use it in a very simple way, in a very similar way, but I also use it to schedule all of my content and keep track of podcasts that I'm talking with and all of that good stuff as well too. So it's the project management, heavy lifting. These are all of the manual to do tool for me. Well, my CRM takes care of all of the automations and scheduling and stuff like that.
Automation, that's huge. Yeah. But you know what, I mean, feature rich as it sounds like it is, I'm super impressed already just looking at the interface here that looks super clean. And
oh my gosh.
Again, we have a lot of clutter from features. It can be very easily distracting and overwhelming, especially for those that are not using a system like that. I'm going to have to check this out now. I'm very curious. Okay, very cool.
Well, and the great thing about it is that it works for visual people too, because it has different views and you can look at the same task list in different ways. So there's that.
Yeah, the whiteboarding and mind mapping, and that looks really interesting as well. That's kind of cool. You're so excited.
I love it so much.
That's so funny. Okay, so clickup.com for anybody listening in, and then Dubsado, DUBSADO.com as well for a CRM system for anybody listening. And we'll link to those in the show notes at bokehpodcast.com. Melissa, first of all, again, incredible energy, but I also really love your teaching style, and you obviously have a lot of expertise in this particular area. So you didn't ask me to do this, but I'd love for you to share just briefly a little bit about the consulting services that you offer to photographers as well in this regard.
Yeah, of course. So I believe in making photographers' lives easier. With 15 years in the business, I know I've been there, done that, stayed up late, done all of that. So everything that I do caters specifically to making your life easier. I work with photographers in 4 different ways. The first one is a make it work offer that I have. And essentially this is, I come in and we work with your CRM or your systems or whatever you've got. We spend about 90 minutes together and make what you've got work. This is kind of like making sure that everything's set up correctly or that you're using things the way you should and that kind of thing. I also have a Move Me Please service, which is for all of those photographers out there who are going to be buying in on those Black Friday CRM deals. You know, we've all done it at some point, found a new CRM that we need to get set up and then don't have the time for it. So Move Me Please is where I come in and do all the dirty work for you, get you all set up, customized, and then hand it over to you. Super done, super easy. My Get It Done offer is where essentially I take my pre-strategized, proven wedding photography system and I implement it into your CRM for you. Again, completely hands-off for you so that you log in and you have this beautiful client experience system set up to cater to your clients from the first inquiry all the way to handoff. And then I've got a custom build offer as well too that lets us go in and build your dream CRM and workflow and experience with a project management and a CRM tool so that you've got something completely custom and catered to you. So you got to make your life easier by utilizing tools. You know what I mean? And I am the nerd that loves to do all of the setup and tech work and everything like that. So let me do it for you. Make your life easier, man.
I mean, you're so excited about it. I think most photographers used to be like, oh my goodness, please take this.
Yeah.
I need you in my life. So, okay. So we're going to, as you were talking, I put that up on screen and virtuallydonesystems.com. Let me do this really quick one more time. Virtuallydonesystems.com, just like it sounds for anybody listening in. And you can check out Melissa's website there. And what's really the best way, Melissa, for photographers to reach out to you?
Yeah, so they could reach out to me via my website. Of course, I've got a nice automated lead capture form. But you can also reach out to me on Instagram, and it's just Virtually Done Systems on Instagram as well, too. And you can DM me there. I'm typically there a little bit more often than I'm in my email, but either way works perfect.
Sounds good. All right, we popped that up on the screen, and of course, we'll link to it in the show notes, newbiepodcast.com. For everybody listening in, Melissa, thank you once again. This was really, really great. Truly appreciate it.
Oh my gosh, this was so much fun.